Hey buddy, watch this.
Hello, Regis Kilbin is the name, and Here's the Storm, of course, is the game. And today I'm here to talk about my ultimate Uther build. For me, this is really the top build for Uther. Now that said, I do have a couple talent choices in this build, which you might find a little unusual. They aren't exactly the most popular talent choices you'll see for Uther around the globe. But I think they offer Uther more consistency in solo queue in particular. I'll talk about them in more detail, but essentially, this build requires less of your teammates. They don't have to make as many coordinated or big time plays. So this build is less about big moments or big swing turns and more about consistency. So offering your teammates a more reliable base level of healing, more consistent shielding, and it doesn't require them to be organized or frankly all that adept at the game. So the general goal with this build, of course, is just to support your teammates, do a lot of healing, do a lot of shielding, keep everybody alive, offer timely stuns, and just be a consistent base presence, talented presence for your team. So without further delay, let's go ahead and take a look at each of these talents real quickly. Conjurer's Pursuit, Protective Shield, Wave of Light, Divine Shield, Shrink Ray, Hardened Focus, and finally, Storm Shield. That one might have given you pause, but let's go through these in more detail. I'll describe the unusual choices and the common ones, of course, too. Conjurer's Pursuit at level 1. This, when you collect regeneration globes, permanently increases your mana regen by 0.1 per second. Of course, Uther is a mana hog. Holy Light costs 90 mana. Holy Radiance costs 65 mana. Even your stun costs 50 mana. That 90 mana, if you look, is practically 1/7 of your entire mana bar. So you can see, just using 3 abilities, your mana starts to reduce quite quickly. So Conjurer's Pursuit just gives you the ability to stay around in the late game without constantly having to hit a healing well or head back to the base, which is pretty important as a support. You need to be able to engage in long fights and move from skirmish to skirmish or from objective to objective without long pauses, and you need to be in good shape. You still have to, of course, monitor your cooldowns and your mana overall. This won't enable you to just go crazy, but it can certainly help in the right moments and key moments, having that heal ready when necessary. At level 4, we're going to take Protective Shield. This allows you to activate a shield on an allied hero for 15% of their max health for 5 seconds. So of course it's pretty simple. You just get a nice little shield. One thing to note with Protective Shield is that it's based on a percentage of a hero's health. So with Uther, at 4,500 health, for instance, a 10% shield would be 450 health, which means a 15% shield is about 625 health, if I did that math right in my head, which is decent. That's not as much as Holy Light, though, for instance, for 936. But something to keep in mind is that Protective Shield becomes more valuable the higher health your target has. So on a tank, Protective Shield might actually heal more than Holy Light, whereas you cast it on a squishy with only 300 health, that's only going to mitigate 500 points of damage. So if you're a smart Uther player, you'll try to use your shields on your meteor targets and your heals that have a static healing amount on your squishier targets to maximize the amount of damage mitigation that you can actually provide. Protective Shield here we choose at this level just to give Uther a little bit of mana-free burst heal, essentially. It's not exactly a heal, of course, because it's a shield, but mana-free damage reduction, which in the early game, before Conjurer's Pursuit really starts to take off, can be a big deal, because you'll be really scrapped for mana in the beginning levels of the game, and having Protective Shield at level 4 can prevent the enemy team from really just rolling you at an objective early and snowballing out of control. So not only is it good early, it's also strong late with the right targets. At level 7, we're going to take Wave of Light. Each hero healed by Holy Radiance, that's our W, of course, returns 10 mana and reduces the cooldown by 1 second, up to a maximum of 50 mana in 5 seconds. So of course mana reduction with Uther is a fantastic thing. As we mentioned, he's very mana starved. So not only does this reduce your mana expenditures, but it also reduces cooldowns. And Uther is very much a slave to cooldowns. His 2 primary heals are each 12 seconds. So you can heal a nice burst all of a sudden, but then you gotta wait 12 seconds to do it again, which is a very long time. Or you could basically spread these out for 6 seconds every 6 seconds you'll have a heal, which is still quite a long time in some fights. So being able to reduce the cooldown of your W in particular is useful because if you'll note, it heals for 480 health, which is more than half of your Q at 936. So that means as long as you hit one other target with Holy Radiance, because Holy Radiance does always hit Uther, should note that, so we do receive the heal. So it'll always hit you and one other target, as long as somebody is in that line, as long as somebody is in this area of effect, you're going to be more efficiently healing than Holy Light, both in a mana sense, but also in a cooldown sense, thanks to Wave of Light at level 7, because it's going to reduce your cooldown. And a huge mana return as well, because you'll get 20 mana back, so it makes it a 45 mana ability instead of a 90 mana ability. So really, with this talent, Holy Radiance becomes your primary tool. You're going to be using it most of the time. As long as one person gets hit, you're better off using Holy Radiance than Holy Light, unless you just desperately need that burst heal. And that's where Holy Light comes in. It's basically filling in the gaps that Holy Radiance can't take care of. So moving on to level 10, we're going to choose Divine Shield. This is your heroic ability, of course. You make an allied hero invulnerable and increase their movement speed by 20% for 3 seconds. So we can see this in action here. You get a nice glow on your screen. Become invulnerable. The towers won't even bother attacking you. Divine Shield is really a couple things. One, it's sort of get out of jail free card. If you have an ally that is absolutely getting destroyed, you can instantly cast Divine Shield. Keep them alive for 3 seconds. Buy them some time to make a quick escape because they do receive movement speed as well as that invulnerability. So they're good to go for a short time. Can get out, save the fight, come back and fight another day. But more importantly, if you use Divine Shield with somebody who knows what they're doing, and say an assassin or a bruiser that really is eating up the enemy team, you can cast it in an aggressive way just to give them 3 seconds of unmitigated aggression. So they won't get stunned, they won't get locked down, they can just go crazy and do tons of damage and unload on the enemy team and just cause all that chaos and havoc that they're so good at. So not only a defensive tool, but sometimes an offensive tool if you do have an ally or a teammate that knows how to use it, maybe even communicate that beforehand. Up next, level 13 is Shrink Ray. This is yet another active ability. Uther does have quite a few active talents. You can get even more than this, of course. I've seen people with 5 active talents up here. But this one, anytime you cast it, you reduce an enemy hero's damage by 50% and their movement speed by 50% for 4 seconds. So again, Shrink Ray is another ability that kind of has defensive and offensive utility, which is nice when your support can do a little bit of both. Not only can you use this to, say, deny an enemy thrall who's really just eating somebody up, reduce his movement speed to lock him down in place so you can't chase an ally. You can also just reduce his damage if you need to. But you can also use this offensively sometimes if somebody's trying to make a quick escape. Just denying them by limiting their movement speed for so long is usually enough for your team to catch up and to get the kill. So Shrink Ray is nice in both regards, and none of the other talents on this tier really stand out. Moving on to level 16, this is one place where my build really starts to differ. Also at level 7, a lot of people will take Cleanse instead of Wave of Light, but Cleanse has gotten a little worse over time. You already have so many active abilities that it's actually somewhat mechanically difficult to manage them all if you do take Cleanse and so many different things. Also, between Divine Shield and Shrink Ray and even your stun, you have ways to basically peel or protect allies, so Cleanse is not always necessary. So Cleanse to me is just pretty significantly inferior to Wave of Light at level 7. But back to the point, Hardened Focus, a lot of people, in fact majority of players, will select Benediction at this tier, which is yet another active talent that'll show up on your bar, which means some players will have 4 to 5 active talents. Frankly, I think that's mechanically challenging for a lot of players just to manage and execute that. Plus, Benediction does require some mechanical skill just with its timing and knowing when to use it. If you're very, very talented, you might feel comfortable with Benediction, and it certainly has the potential. But I would suggest that Benediction requires so much more from your teammates to be good that I think it's inferior a majority of the time to Hardened Focus. Hardened Focus, anytime you're above 80% life, your basic ability cooldowns regenerate 50% faster. So in other words, this one is much more consistent and reliable in its cooldown reductions. You're always going to have abilities ready to go a little bit sooner. So you might just have it 3-4 seconds sooner, you know, which in a kind of back and forth skirmish or disorganized team fight, that is more meaningful than something like Benediction, which gives you one really intense and powerful swing moment, say with a double stun or a double burst heal, just right off, just boom, boom. That requires really organized team fights, both good enemies and good allies, to get more value out of that. So for a vast majority of players, I think trying to make Benediction work is kind of a wasted effort. And there's only going to be a couple moments in any given game where this really seems to make a difference, whereas Hardened Focus just gives you more all the time, whether you're really thinking about it or not. Not to mention that most of the time as Uther, it's not that hard to be above 80% life because, as I mentioned before, we're using Holy Radiance a lot thanks to our Wave of Light talent at level 7. So when we're using Holy Radiance so often, as much as we can, in fact, remember, that heals us too. So we're constantly going to be healing ourselves, even if we're not really thinking about it or trying, which means the cooldown reductions are going to be coming even faster and even harder all the time, making Hardened Focus even better. So that's why I pick Hardened Focus here. Feel free to disagree, take Benediction, it's a strong talent as well, but I encourage you to try out Hardened Focus. And then finally, at level 20, probably the most unusual talent for my ultimate Uther build, a vast majority of players will select Redemption in this tier, which of course anytime you die as Uther and then your ghost expires, you return to life with 50% health and you're back in action, healing and fighting and stunning once more. The problem I have with Redemption for a majority of players in the average game is that you get it at level 20, which is already very late in the game. Most games don't even necessarily make it to level 20. Even when they do, this effect has a 3-minute cooldown. So you have to get to level 20. Even if it goes off immediately at level 20, you have to wait 3 minutes every time. I've rarely seen games where this effect happen more than twice. I mean, it usually doesn't even ever happen. Sometimes it happens once, and almost never does it happen 2 to 3 or 4 times. So I would argue that it's very challenging to actually get value out of Redemption. Plus, Redemption really only rewards you when you're failing. So you only get the benefit when you're already dead, which sometimes it's totally wasted because your whole team has wiped anyway. The game's about to end. Even if you're way ahead and your team wipes and you die, being able to come back doesn't necessarily mean you can do anything valuable. You don't necessarily have anyone to heal. They may already be gone or retreated or disengaged. So between the times this doesn't really pan out in the game, how rare it pans out, I actually think Storm Shield is a little bit stronger of a talent just because it provides you more consistency. It's valuable at all points in a fight. It's good in a multiple tank meta because it is based on a percentage of health. There's so many reasons to me Storm Shield is better. It has a short cooldown so you can use it 4, 5, 6 times in a match, even at the end of the game post level 20. It just makes you better at being a support as opposed to being a support more often, if that makes sense. So to me, Storm Shield just gives your team the extra survivability and the extra burst and more time to take advantage of Uther's huge heals, that it's just better. I encourage you to try Storm Shield if you haven't. For me, it is a fundamental part of the ultimate Uther build, and all over just an underrated talent, I think. And if you check the numbers, I think you'll even see that Storm Shield has a slightly higher win percentage than Redemption, according to hotslogs.com. So I may not be alone in that belief. And there you have it. That's my ultimate Uther build. I'll run through the talents one more time. Conjurer's Pursuit, Protective Shield, Wave of Light, Divine Shield, Shrink Ray, Hardened Focus, and Storm Shield. I think this will make you the most consistent and reliable and powerful Uther player that you can be in a solo queue setting. So have fun playing this build. Uther's a great hero when he's working well. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, game on.